If you're enjoying the All Things Real Estate podcast, please feel free to subscribe, rate, and leave a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. That helps others find the show, and we really appreciate it. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll catch you in the next episode.
Good morning, Josh.
Good morning, Joey.
It's August, and it's been somewhat mild summer for Redding. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I talked to people outside of the area, and I said, "Man, it's not really that hot. It's only 99 degrees." And they're like, "What?" And I'm like, "Brother, it will break 110, and that 11 degrees difference is a lot.
It's a lot. Yeah.
It's a lot. So it's been kind of a mild summer, and economically, it's been kind of a mild summer.
Sure.
You know, just things going on in the economy. I've got a lot of anecdotal stories about people saying, "Hey, it just feels like things are slowing down everywhere." And a lot of people thought the feds were going to lower interest rates, and they didn't. And that's kind of a big deal. How's that affecting real estate? Like, are you seeing it?
Yeah. I mean, well, the real estate market and for the month of July, you know, I think we finished around 211 or so properties that closed, down about 17% over last year.
Wow.
You know, and so in our absorption rate now, we're sitting around 5.3 months supply.
Okay, so we're going into a buyer's market.
Yeah, we're definitely shifting. I mean, 0 to 3 months, seller's market, 4 to 5 months, neutral market, 6 months or more, buyer's market. And, you know, at 5.3 months, we're at that tail end of a neutral market. And it's kind of reflecting too in the sales prices because, you know, this year, I think last month, 365 was the average or the median sales price in the market. A year ago was 369. Again, indication of that neutral market that we're moving into. So August is really just kind of mirroring the previous months of this year where, you know, buyers are more, you know, selective in terms of what they want to purchase.
They've got options.
Yeah. Inventory's growing by 30% year over year.
Yeah,
so
they didn't have options a year ago.
No, which makes it nice. I mean, you know, what we like to do obviously is we sit down with our clients in the office and kind of go through a full, you know, conversation around what the market conditions are, what options look like for buyers, and, you know, provide that consultative approach to the real estate business. And a lot of them come in just scratching their head, trying to figure out what, you know, make heads or tails of what's happening.
Yeah, I think, you know, we always talk about this because it's real estate. So you only have so many topics that you can really cover, but it totally depends on the segment you're in. Because you just said it went down. What did you say? It went from 369 to 360?
369 to 365.
Which
on the median sales price.
But it's $4,000. I mean, that's like, it's 1%.
Yeah.
So, but you know, I think that probably the higher segments are probably feeling the pinch a lot more, but the lower segments, I mean, that's not really shifting much.
No. For me as a business owner in real estate, what I look at is I go, okay, half of all sales were below 365.
Yeah,
now that,
crazy.
Yeah, you know, that gives me an idea of where the market actually is in our market. And now for our listeners, people watching this, that it gives them an idea too. And as that price goes up, the buyer demand begins to subside a little bit, you know, and it becomes a little softer. So positioning in the market price wise, having a really well presented property and with good marketing is all really necessary.
You know, it's just more eyes on your property. You know, the more people that you can show your property to, the more people that you can get your property out to, the better chance you have.
That's right.
Getting an offer and a higher offer.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, my sons and I were talking the other day. I can't remember. It was something about something cost something 20 years ago. And they were doing in the video, they were showing the inflation. They said, oh, you know, like $5,000 then would be like, you know, $13,000 now. Mm-hmm. And I can't remember how it sparked, but I said, well, that's kind of a weird thing because if you look at properties, they've gone up a lot more than that. Like, you know, sure. Versus it's doing the whole market and saying, oh, if you had $5,000 20 years ago, that's $13,000. I'm like, if you look at housing 20 years ago, yeah, versus now, it has gone up way more, yeah, than say the cost of eggs or gasoline, certainly, yeah. And I think that lower end of the market has gone up tremendously. You used to be able to buy 20 years ago, you could buy a house for $110,000.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, I think it's,
you couldn't probably buy the dirt for that right now.
No. And actually it's a failure in policy overall. I mean, when you see housing prices appreciating way faster than inflation, that's a problem because that means you are pricing portions of the market out of the market. Mm-hmm. You know, I think that, you know, a healthy real estate market's appreciating anywhere between 3 and 5%, depending on the year. Mm-hmm. But we've had double digit appreciation for many of those years over the last 15 years. And that's just not something that is conductive or conducive for your kids to be able to buy real estate. So real estate is one of those assets that you just really don't want to manipulate too much. Unfortunately, a lot of the policy is designed to try to regulate that, and it's actually just causing a bigger problem. The biggest answer to housing prices is supply. If you simply increase the supply, it'll soften the prices. And the only way you're going to increase supply is to build more. Yeah.
And then in our state, and I don't know about Reading, how much more stringent it is than the state. I imagine it's, whatever set of rules the state comes out with, there's a few more rules for the city.
Sure.
Right. Like it's probably a little bit easier to build in the county than it is city.
I don't know about that anymore.
No. County's catching up.
I've been hearing way different stories about that.
So we're just talking about things like I remember a few years ago talking to one of the builders, and they had to put in it had to be solar ready, and they had to put in.
That's a state regulation.
Yeah, and they had to put in fire sprinkler systems.
Yep. State.
And they were, and obviously this is cost that has to be passed on to the consumer. It's not like you just, hey, you're just going to eat it. And he was talking about how even though you put in this, you think, oh, that's good, a fire system. And he said, actually, these houses, because the way that they force everything, they actually are they're more prone to burn up faster now, even with a water sprinkler system, than they were 30 years ago, because they have to close in everything. And there's just some engineering behind it saying, no, if this did catch fire, God forbid, it's going to go up like that. Those water sprinklers aren't going to stop anything.
Sure. Well,
but on paper, it sounded great.
Sounded great. Yeah. Yeah. I agree that I think they need to be more solution oriented. If the goal is to increase the housing supply, then every rule and regulation should be in support of that effort. Right. Yeah. Which means you're probably peeling back a whole lot of it. And you and I have talked about it, I think several years ago in a podcast. And I was like, well, look, if you roll back the building code back to like 1990 or 1991, and you allowed builders to build homes up to, let's say, 1,600 square feet under that previous building code, the cost of construction is going to go down.
Yeah.
And then people are going to be able to afford a home, and you can start to have this solution beginning to slowly roll out across the state. But again, you're not going to get anybody to be willing to give up their policy they're all proud of with their name on it, right? So it's going to be a challenge going forward, I think, for not just us, but other states too are running into the same situation where they're beginning to overregulate it as well. And housing's a big issue. People need a place to live.
It's core. It's core.
It is.
You have to have a place to live. Yeah. There's a couple of quotes, one by Milton Friedman and one by Thomas Sowell, that are similar, and I'm going to butcher them, but they basically said something about like confusing intentions with results, saying like, okay, we have these intentions. We want to make these homes safer. And then, sticking to your guns because of your intentions, saying, yeah, but look at the results. We have no inventory. People can't afford, first-time home buyers can't afford.
Correct.
We're seeing all these, repercussions and results from this. And at some point somebody goes, wait a second, we had great intentions, but we're not getting the results that we wanted.
Yeah.
We should switch. And that's, unfortunately, our system doesn't move like that. It's steering the Titanic.
I wouldn't bet on that one right now.
No, I wouldn't bet on that one.
Yep.
So one of the big things that just came out was they thought the feds were going to cut interest rates.
Yeah.
And they didn't.
No.
And they cited some stuff. And I watch a great podcast. I bring it up all the time, but I love those dudes. The All In podcast. And I think David Friedberg and Chamath Palihapitiya did a great job of addressing how they're not really looking at the economy. Like they're looking at these classical numbers and saying, well, because of these numbers, we're not going to lower interest rates.
Right.
And they were saying, yeah, but we're in a much more dynamic, intricate economy than we were 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years ago. And they're still using those formula from like 1974, and saying, no, there's stuff going on that interest rates should come down. And that would help. That would open things up.
Sure. Well, I mean, earlier this month in August, we had the jobs report came out, over the previous couple of months, and it turns out they were all wrong again, and grossly overestimated the amount of jobs in the economy. And how people need to understand how this works is that the Federal Reserve sets an interest rate as an impact on jobs, right? So as they're cutting rates, that's making it easier for businesses to actually grow jobs. And so you'll see the job numbers increasing. And then the stock market takes those job numbers and says, okay, well, obviously the economy is expanding. And so you see the stock market responding in a positive way as jobs grow up, right? Go up. But what's been happening recently is that jobs are going down. They were underreported, and now they've revised those reporting. In fact, I think the person that does reporting for it just got fired.
Or is going to get fired.
Yeah. And as a result of that, now we're seeing the real jobs numbers. They are going down. The Feds don't meet, I don't think, until September, middle of September, to revisit rates, unless something really big happens this month that would cause that to change. But otherwise, it's not until the September 15th that they meet again.
Yeah. And so what does that mean to because we're getting kind of heady, but what does that mean to buyers and sellers? To buyers, it's the cost of money, which is a cost of the house.
Well, mortgage rates have a lot to do with, the 30-year bond, obviously, and that comes off of the 10-year bond. But I think what people need to understand is that if the economy is slowing down, you're going to start to see the interest rates coming down as a result, because it's a stimulus. Interest rates dropping is a stimulus to the economy. In the real estate sector, as the interest rates come down, purchasing power improves, meaning that a buyer that was qualified at $300,000, if the interest rate drops 1%, they're now qualified at $330,000 with the same payment. Or maybe another way to look at it is that, let's say that I had a payment of $3,000 a month on a home. If the rates drop by 1%, that means that same payment drops to $2,700 a month. So these are positive things in the housing market. But they've been talking about the rates coming down for the last year. Yeah, and it hasn't come down very much.
No.
So we're hopeful though that I think that you'll start to see some meaningful change in the rate coming down between now and the end of the year.
Are the rates still in the sixes, give or take?
Yeah, right now we're sitting around 6.65, 6.5, and then back up to 6 and 7.5. So it's bouncing around, but it is bouncing around in the right direction.
It's creeping downward. Yes. And we need probably interest rates to get down the fives to see a major push in real estate, right?
Oh yeah, we need to be sub 6, mid 5s to be able to really show up in the market at all.
So hopefully, it won't be in our September podcast because it probably won't have met, but maybe by October we'll have good news, say interest rates have gone down.
I think so.
Something else that we were talking about was in the real estate world, there's a big juggernaut, and that's Zillow. And they have, when you say Zillow, you used to say Zillow, and it was just kind of like a leads generation company. They had the MLS, they generated leads, but they're a player on multiple levels. And there's a lot of stuff going on. I've heard about, I think Compass may have brought a suit against them. And there's been just a lot of stuff that Zillow's doing that's not, a lot of people aren't happy with. Can you kind of address that?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, Zillow's been a website that home buyers and sellers would search. Really, I think it started coming out. I'm trying to remember. It might have been 2007 or 8 is when I remember it starting to really take traction. It might have been out sooner than that, but that's when I remember starting to see it. And what it is it's a website that takes listings from the multiple listing service and puts them on their site. And then over time, what they ended up doing is they would generate leads from buyers that were inquiring on real estate. And they would then sell those leads to people who wanted to buy leads from Zillow. Like our company participated buying leads there. And back in the day, if I paid money, I could claim my own listings on their site. So if a buyer went to Zillow, started looking at any of our listings, and a buyer had a question about one of our listings, because I paid for it, those leads would come to my company, increasing the chances of us actually having some information about the listing, right? They've taken that away. They won't allow, in most cases, other than if you accidentally bought it, they won't allow for leads to be directly routed to your own personal listings, which is hard because the consumers all think when they get on Zillow, in many cases, they think that when they check on a listing on Zillow and inquire for more information, that they will be connected with the listing agent or at the very least, the listing office. But in reality, in almost every case, it's connected to a buyer's agent who's buying leads, who's not associated with that listing or that office, which means you have a consumer who is not being connected with the person who has the most information related to that listing. And that's a problem. And it's continuing to become a bigger and bigger problem. This next thing that just happened is that now Zillow is saying that if a real estate company, this is where Compass comes in, if a real estate company is advertising a listing before it goes on the multiple listing service, that Zillow will flag it and say that it's never allowed to go on their platform. So what that means is that Zillow no longer is actually advertising all listings available on the multiple listing service on their site. So if you have a buyer who's thinking Zillow has all the listings, and then you have a policy with Zillow that says we don't post all the listings because if you don't meet our criteria, we won't post it. Now the consumer is misinformed on what's available. Mm-hmm. And there's some problems that are popping up as a result of that now in the industry. That's where the big debate is right now.
Yeah. And I think people outside of the industry look at Zillow as just this like consumer facing like product for the consumer. And so they're like, oh, well, you can just go there and it's convenient and you can do it. But the truth is no, that they're steeped in the business and they do a lot of things. Zillow is there for Zillow. I mean, it's a business. It's a business.
And what I think the consumers don't even realize is that they have a program, which we don't participate in, but there's a program out where they will take leads and then they send them as a referral to a real estate office and they charge up to 40% of the commission that the agent would have received. 40% goes to Zillow. I wonder how many consumers know that Zillow is making 40% in that transaction because it's not disclosed anywhere. It's not written down on a document. And again, we don't participate in that. We do buy leads from Zillow. But my goal in buying leads is I'm increasing the chances that if a buyer goes on Zillow to look at a listing, that if it's ours, I'm just increasing the chances it might flow to our company so we can service it better.
Yeah.
And that's where the challenge is popping up. It's an interesting thing to watch because it's gonna they've picked a fight, and I think we're gonna see how this all plays out now.
Yeah, and they do some other stuff where I know they charge like it's not just the 40%. They tell them they have to put a certain number of home loans through their program. I mean, they've got some pretty strict. The term that came to my mind when I heard some of the stories was gangster. I was like, wow, dude. You know what I mean? They had some like, you're going to play our game and you're going to, they went from just providing leads to being quite the force.
They're muscling around a little bit right now. And my whole argument on this is that be transparent, disclose.
Yeah.
Disclose to the consumer that you're making large profits off of their transaction. So that they can then understand your process. Like most of the clients that we talk to don't realize that when you call on a listing on Zillow, that you're not connected with the listing agent in almost every case.
Yeah.
I mean, that by itself is something that most consumers don't know.
Well, when you think about real estate, if you've worked in real estate, there's so much disclosure that has to be done. I mean, the contracts, whether you like them or not, there's an underlying philosophy or theme or something that's basically saying, hey, look, we have to make this as transparent as possible. Mm-hmm. You can't hide it. I mean, that's built into real estate.
Sure.
The liability of a seller not disclosing information, then finding out later, hey, you knew this.
Right.
That's where the liability kicks in. And so when I look at the contracts, it's disclosure. And you've talked about how, when you've taken a listing, some of your clients are like, man, you really don't like our house. Because you're telling them, look, you have to disclose everything.
Right.
There, nothing needs to be, and they would be like, it's like that covers you.
Right.
That's a shield for you because you can say, I told you everything.
Yeah. And just to give some credit to Zillow, potentially, I'm sure that it's written somewhere in their platform and if you read the large disclosure document or the terms or whatever that you subscribe to when you sign up on their site, I'm sure there's probably something there.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, I mean, who's reading that, right?
Well, you can tell when there's a new regulation or law passed because I use a lot of different software products.
Yeah.
And within 48 hours, I'll get like 15 emails from 15 different companies, all with, we've updated our terms. And you can tell because they come in floods. So you can say, oh, a bill was passed. There's something that happened. And now I've got, Canva and all the software products are like new terms. And it's the emails are like, they look like the beginning of War and Peace. You know what I mean? You open the email and there's like 19 paragraphs, a font size 12. And come on, I'm not, like we all have to be lawyers to just answer our emails.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so I'm sure, you're right. It's like, hey, technically we disclose that, but I don't know that there's, in law enforcement, they have the spirit and the letter of the law, right? The letter of the law is you were doing 57 and a 55 in my county and you're going to jail. The spirit is like, hey, bud, 57, 55, they don't even pull you, over. And if maybe you were doing, can't speak for law enforcement, but maybe you're doing 63 and a 55. They pull you over and go, hey, bud, slow down.
Yeah.
Okay, this is a 55.
Right.
You know, you don't have to, but that's the difference. And so I think that's, to me, the spirit and the letter of I did send you a 37-page document explaining in great detail, henceforth, hitherto, you know,
that's right.
That kind of thing. Like the consumers, you know, come on, we got a life.
Yeah.
And so I don't know how it'll play out. I just noticed that because I'm kind of pseudo in the industry, I'm getting a lot of emails of, you know, lawsuit, litigation, various things are going on, but that's kind of that's what we live in.
Something that's interesting that's changing a little bit is in the fire insurance area. Just bring that up,
please.
Yeah. So in California, they're beginning to try to work with the insurance companies to give them some more flexibility in terms of how they write policies. And one of those is that you don't have to use a blanket geographical location to determine fire insurance rates. They'll actually be able to determine it more on a case-by-case basis based on how well you're taking care of your property, how well you've built your defendable space. You know, some of the other characteristics are probably still going to be a part of it, but that's going to help to mitigate some of that extra expense. And so we're also seeing some shifting where more companies are beginning to participate again in writing insurance policies. I think they're doing some refitting of the California Fair Plan, solving some of those insolvency issues that they were going to be running into, particularly with what happened in Southern California. So we're starting to see some movement there. And the reason I bring that up is because I've been getting a lot of questions from property owners in the market, obviously concerned about that, and equally from buyers. And I wouldn't say the problem has been solved, but I would say that, you know, there are some meaningful steps in the right direction to solving it. It's still going to take some time.
Yeah, at least they're addressing it, because something that happened the last couple of years was that insurance suddenly became a major, it was always an afterthought. Like, okay, cool. By the way, let's get insurance in our, you know, when we get our title and escrow payment.
Yep.
And all of a sudden people were getting sticker shock when they were like, oh, by the way, your insurance is, especially when you got outside of the city limits, you start county. And it probably, it broke a lot of deals.
Yeah.
A lot of people were like, okay, we're ready to close. And then they got an insurance quote and they're like, you just priced me right out of that house.
Oh yeah. No, we're seeing it a lot. You know, I don't want to get into the details of it, but we're seeing it too much. It's actually disrupting housing, period.
Just knowing that it's getting addressed, it would be the same thing as if the state and the city said, hey, we're gonna look at our building standards and maybe dial them back a little bit because we don't have inventory.
Right.
That's probably the two single biggest things that can affect our market in both a positive and negative manner would be, one, new construction, and interest rates. And interest rates can be addressed, you know, whether they meet every 2 months, 3 months,
every 60 days.
But construction, even if they passed, you know, if they said, hey, look, we're going to, like you said, let's go back to 1990, what'd you say, 97, 92, something like that?
I'd say 1990.
Okay, let's go back to 1990 standards, because from what I see, all the houses that were built in 90 are still standing.
Absolutely.
And so if they said that, it would take a year plus for you to see that positive impact on the market, because then the builders would sit down and start doing their math. Then they would start to pull their permits. Then it's like that's the long game, or the longer game versus interest rates. Or if the Feds cut rates in September, then you're going to see it immediate, like the next day. Yeah.
I mean, you'll increase the buyer demand. You'll be able to increase affordability, and it has a positive impact. Rental market now.
Okay.
So you have two segments to the rental market. You have the short-term rental market, which is 30 days or less. That's your vacation rentals. And then you have your long-term rental market, which is 30 days or more. And that's more the rental property. And we're starting to see, you know, the rental market is actually plateauing out. The vacancy rate in the long-term rental market is about 7.5%.
Okay.
Which means that rents are probably still pretty strong.
Okay.
The short-term rental market, I've been being told, is not doing as well. And some of those are being transitioned into the long-term rental market, or some are being liquidated or just taken off the market for short-term rentals altogether. Which I think everybody thought that was going to be a huge opportunity. It just hasn't turned into that yet.
I wonder if that's a sign of the economy as a whole seems to be, it's in a little bit of a flux. I mean, we've seen policies in the last 6 months where people, you know, they stated, hey, we're going to do this policy. And of course, the problem is so much of this is politics. It's just absolute. It's like watching a soap opera where everyone just gnashing of teeth, and we're all the sky's falling. And then 60 days later, they're like, oh, that policy worked. Wait, so it's hard you have to use some kind of filter to even figure out what's going on. But all these markets are so interconnected. They're just the stock market crashes on a Tuesday. Oh, wait, it's at a high by Thursday. Yeah. Wait, it's back down on Friday. You're just like, you're just punch drunk.
Yeah. You could become bipolar real quick.
Yeah. I didn't need any help.
Yeah.
And so there's a bunch of stuff going on with the market right now, but from a real estate standpoint, I think we still stick to if you're renting and you can afford to buy, you should buy, marry the house, date the interest rate. That probably there's going to be hopefully some interest rate relief coming in the next 12 months.
Yeah. I think that's probably reasonable to think.
And just like you've said many times, and this goes to like the fire thing, is to just make these blanket statements about real estate, it's not good. It's an individual thing. Mm-hmm. If you have to find a place to live, that's not the same as, hey, I was thinking about investing and buying a bunch of properties and flipping them. Those are very different conversations.
They are.
And but overall, I still think the real estate market's very healthy.
Yeah. I mean, we're moving into a more balanced market. It's definitely plateauing out. How long this season lasts, anybody's guess, but typically it's usually a year or so. And then we start to see, some momentum again. So, I've been doing this for 26 years, man. I've seen this enough times to know that you don't overreact when things are really good. You don't underreact when things are really bad. You just, take an even keel with it.
Right on. So any message you want to leave our viewers with for August? Any points that we didn't get on?
Well, for those who have kids, enjoy the last week or so, or maybe they're back in school now for some of your kids, but enjoy the school year starting off. And for everybody else, we're going to get into that cooler weather here just around the corner. We're almost there. And all the reasons why I love the North State so much is in the next 3 months. So
awesome. Thank you, Josh. I'll see you in September.
Sounds great.
Thanks, buddy.
If you're enjoying the All Things Real Estate podcast, please feel free to subscribe, rate, and leave a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. That helps others find the show, and we really appreciate it. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll catch you in the next episode.